thing regarding to demand generation. So whenever I talk to CMOs, the first question that comes up is, do we really have to build communities? Do we really have to own communities? And if
Yeah,
yes, where? There are
yeah,
thousands of platforms. Where should I actually need to have my demand generation community? So there are two parts to this question where I would like to have your inputs on. First is, do I really need to have a community, or how can I leverage the existing one? If not, second, if I really have to build my community, where should I build one? Because my customers can't go here and there.
yeah. Again, another really good question. So the first part is, do I need a community? And it really comes down to part of what is the size of your business. Uh, for most businesses, if they're under $10 million in revenue, I usually recommend you don't build your own community because you don't have enough resources and people to maintain the work that needs to be done to build and maintain relationships in a strong community. Now, above 10 million in revenue, and I'll get back to like what do you do if you're one of those companies, but above 10 million in revenue, I propose in my book those organizations might attribute 5 or 10%, maybe up to 12% of their marketing program budget into community. When I talk about community-led marketing as a CMO, I'm not saying, oh, community should take 50% of the budget or 20%, like, some massive number in the budget. It's actually a very small percentage that accompanies the rest of very traditional brand and product marketing. Uh, Now, the thing that I tell people, and I advise people on this all the time, is when you get into a community or you're investing time in community-led efforts, there's something that I call the 1,000-hour rule. And that is, who in the organization do you have that can contribute 1,000 hours a year into community-led efforts? 1,000 hours is about half of a full-time resource. And so when you're a very small company, it's very hard. If your marketing team is only 3 people or 2 people, it's hard to say, of all the things that we need to do in marketing, we're going to contribute half of someone's time in that small team to building a community because there's so much to do. Uh, so for those organizations, as well as for organizations trying to explore, should we build a community? I start with the 1,000-hour question because I say, instead of building your own community, which takes a lot of investment and will take time to get off the ground, who on your team has 1,000 hours to contribute into an existing community? So there is a community of practice in your market, and maybe it's a marketing community or a DevOps community or a financial services community. If you have someone on your team that can contribute 1,000 hours into that community, one, you'll have a lot of presence in the community. You'll probably take on a leadership position in that community because very few people want to contribute that much time. And with a leadership position in that community, you can begin to influence what things the community does and what value it offers, and you will build a lot of relationships and connections. But it's that kind of commitment that is required to really build and influence and drive a community. If you don't have someone that you can contribute 1,000 hours to in an external community, there's no way you're going to invest the time internally. So that's kind of the baseline rule of how much time are you willing to commit. And some people that say, oh, I'm willing to commit 100 hours a year into community efforts. It's not, you will contribute, but you won't influence and build. You will just be a participant in that community. So you have to look at kind of the baseline of participation within that. If you're willing to contribute 1,000 hours or more, and if you have no experience in community, I would usually say invest 1,000 hours in an existing community. See how that works. Influence how that works. Lead how that works. And if you, in time, by participating in that community, or think about participating in a market, the community as a market, you will identify gaps in that community that are not being well served. And your company could then say, I want to start a parallel community or a bigger community that will serve that missing piece. So it's almost like the 1,000 hours allows you to better define the product market fit or community market fit that you would look for to be successful. That's what we did with the All Day DevOps conference. We spent about a year and a half in the market, in the DevOps community. We figured out something that was missing. We decided to create that, and we had very, very strong product market fit, which enabled us to go from 0 to 13,000 in 90 days. But it was only because we invested that time up front to understand what was missing, to fill that gap and then execute. Does that help you kind of answer, like, do I need a community? Like, yes, everyone can benefit from a community, but not everyone wants to invest the time that's required to actually make it successful. I've
Hmm.
had, as an example, I've had companies that say, oh, we do community stuff. We host a webinar once a month, right, where we invite people from the community to talk about things. And I say, okay, so for 12 hours a year, you're contributing to the community. But the community needs more time from you to actually see you as a big contributor, influencer in that realm of connections and trust and relationships. 12 hours is not going to build the proper relationships with you or the influence that you need in order to generate hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of leads or millions of revenue. 12 hours a year won't do it, right? 1,000 hours a year gets you started. But again, going back to kind of organizing it, it doesn't need to be a considerable amount of budget within an organization to do that. And I also talk about that in the book as well.